Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something pretty special. We're getting a direct line to history.
Yeah, not from books, but from someone who was actually there, living it.
Exactly. We're going deep into the foundational history of the American Pit Bull Terrier, the APBT, and the whole world of game dogs.
A world that's often, let's face it, misunderstood. And game dog, well, that term itself refers to APBT's bred for that unwavering courage, that resilience in those old regulated competitions.
And our guide through all this, a living legend in the field, a man whose life is just completely intertwined with this whole story.
That's the key. This isn't just a timeline of dogs. It's about a lineage, a culture, these incredible human stories behind it all.
Right.
Our mission really is to pull out the most compelling stories, maybe some surprising facts, and the crucial insights from this primary source. It's unfiltered.
From the man himself.
It's about understanding the why. Why does this history matter so much to the APBT legacy?
And just quickly, before we jump in, for all of you listening who are really passionate about APBT history, about game dogs, you should definitely check out the APBT Info YouTube channel. They've got hundreds of hours of history there. Really deep stuff.
Oh, yeah, a fantastic resource. Really adds layers to what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Our central figure today is Floyd Boudreaux from Louisiana.
And he's not just, some guy who likes dogs. His background gives him this immediate, undeniable authority.
It's that multi-generational connection, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not just his life's work. His father had bulldogs for over 40 years before him. Think about that.
Wow, 40 years.
That's rare. A real family tradition.
Yeah.
It's more than a hobby. It's like it's in the blood.
So he grew up completely immersed in it.
Right. The dogs, the community, the whole culture, it shaped him from day one. And, without exaggerating, he was pivotal in developing a line of dogs, dogs that really have stood the test of time.
Became foundational.
Yeah, the absolute backbone of some of the best performing bloodlines still around today. So it's not just his story. It's about his influence on the entire breed.
So this deep connection started early for him. Can you tell us about his first steps?
Well, he remembers his very first dog, clearly. A brindle female, Flossie. That was his personal start.
Okay.
But his first real taste of what he called the fast lane, the competitive side, was taking a dog named Stagger Lee to San Antonio.
To one of Maurice Carver's shows, right? We'll talk more about Carver later.
Exactly. And that first match, it paints such a picture. He was up against a guy named Steven with a dog called Show.
And Boudreaux felt he had the upper hand.
He did. He thought they had RO beaten. But then things got tricky. Steven apparently kept pushing his dog into the corner with his knees.
Right, during the scratch?
Yeah. Each time it was his turn to scratch, when they released the dogs from the corner.
So basically cheating, giving his dog an unfair advantage.
Pretty much. Repositioning him. And Carver, who was reffing, seemed to let it slide, at least at first. It just shows the intensity, right? The challenges, even with rules, people trying to bend them.
So what did Boudreaux do?
Oh, he didn't hesitate. He stepped right up. Told the guy, very firmly, something like, "Gentlemen, don't push that dog anymore. You've pushed him for the last time."
Wow. Drawing a line.
Absolutely.
Well,
He implies that if he hadn't said something, who knows? It shows his character, right? His sense of fairness, sticking to that unwritten code. He wasn't afraid to enforce it.
that really speaks volumes about him.
No.
Okay, so from Boudreaux's clear integrity, let's shift to Maurice Carver, a much more complex figure, it sounds like.
Definitely enigmatic. We heard his name with the San Antonio shows. Boudreaux knew him. Pretty good, as he put it.
Saw a lot of his shows.
Yep, saw a lot of shows. Even gave Carver some dogs, interestingly enough.
Gave him dogs, not sold.
Gave him dogs.
Hmm.
But Boudreaux makes a point of saying he never really did much business with him.
So connected, but separate paths in a way.
Seems like it. Two big names, same world, different styles.
Mhm.
But Carver definitely had charisma. Boudreaux called him a nice-looking man who could tell a story like no
A
other.
real storyteller.
Yeah, drew people in. You can just picture him.
Boudreaux shared an amazing anecdote about him, didn't he? With a Thunderbird?
Oh, yeah, classic story. Carver and a Mr. Jolly came to Louisiana back in '55, driving this flashy red Thunderbird convertible.
Nice.
But they had to push it to get it started.
No way.
Yep. And they had this black dog, Butch, who apparently leaped out onto the highway at one point, had to chase him down. It just paints such a vivid, kind of chaotic picture of the time.
It really does. And Boudreaux places Carver in context, too, time-wise.
Right. Carver apparently said he started in '46, Boudreaux points out that was just 1 year after his own first fight.
Damn.
So they were exact contemporaries, really.
Coming up together.
And there's another story, the Wino dog incident. Jolly and Carver went to Louisiana to fight Jolly's dog, W-Y-N-O.
Okay.
After the fight, Jolly just decided to sell the dog right then and there.
Spontaneously.
Seems like it. And Carver was furious. So mad, he refused to drive back to Texas with Jolly.
Wow. Strong reaction.
It shows his passionate side, right? Maybe a bit difficult. Strong opinions about how things should be done with the dogs. He had his own code.
So, charismatic storyteller on one side, but also this pragmatic, maybe shrewd operator on the other. Let's talk about his business approach. Boudreaux hinted it was maybe a bit different.
Yeah, different is a good word. Carver had an incredible eye for potential. Boudreaux said he'd watched the hot young dogs in people's yards.
Spotting talent.
Exactly. But instead of matching into them himself, he tried to talk you out of it, try to buy the dog.
Okay. Acquisition over competition, maybe.
That seems to be the pattern. His main focus, Boudreaux says, was then to start selling them, a real commercial drive, which Boudreaux suggests was how he made his living.
Which contrasts with others who focused on fighting their own dogs.
Right. Boudreaux notes Carver himself never did fight many dogs, and when he did, apparently they often came in overweight, not at the agreed match weight.
That's unprofessional in that world, isn't it?
Very. And there's that incident with Mayfield. Carver was matched into him, came in overweight. Mayfield still offered to fight.
Good sportsmanship from Mayfield.
Yeah, but Carver refused, and then sold his dog on the spot.
Sold him right there, instead of fighting.
Yep. It really shows his priorities, doesn't it? Business and pragmatism seem to outweigh the actual competition for him sometimes.
Boudreaux's take was pretty blunt, wasn't it?
Very. He said Carver was always trying to make money with the dogs, implying he wasn't going to work for a living. It suggests Carver built his reputation as much on sales and deals as on anything else.
Creates a definite tension there between the sport and the business.
And that tension leads us right into the most controversial part. The stories, the exaggerations, maybe even misrepresentations.
Particularly with pedigrees, the papers.
Yeah. Boudreaux addresses that directly. Did Carver misrepresent papers? Boudreaux is sure he did to some degree.
Okay, so he confirms it.
But, and this is crucial, he says it was pretty much common knowledge back then. Everybody that needed to know knew about it, including Boudreaux himself.
An open secret then, not hidden from the serious dogman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which suggests a level of, well, maybe acceptance, or at least awareness, within the community. They knew Carver exaggerated. Boudreaux said he would exaggerate a lot and was smart enough to tell you a lie.
What kind of lies?
Oh, fantastic stuff. Claimed he worked for the Mexican government, the Border Patrol. He even told Boudreaux's wife he worked for the Foreign Legion.
The Foreign Legion, that's amazing, just spinning yarns.
Totally. Boudreaux sums him up perfectly. He was a hell of a ladies' man and could convince you that black was blue. He sure was a good salesman.
That charm again.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really tricky, right? This influencing ability, maybe the exaggerations, they even bled into the pedigrees of some of Boudreaux's dogs.
This is a really key point for understanding how history gets recorded or misrecorded. Carver bred to Boudreaux's blind Billy dog, and that's where Carver got famous dogs like Ironhead and Boomerang. Boudreaux is clear. They came out of my stuff. His dogs were the foundation.
But Carver told a different story.
Well, Carver always told us that Boomerang was out of Ironhead. Boudreaux implies that was, a typical Carver simplification or exaggeration. Maybe made the story sound better for selling pups.
So even documented pedigrees could get shaped by personality and commerce, makes tracing lineages really challenging.
Absolutely. You need these first-hand accounts to try and cut through the noise.
Okay, let's pivot now. Away from the complexities of Carver and back to Boudreaux's own story. To his personal favorite, his champion. People must ask him all the time, who is the best dog you ever owned?
They do. And he admits, it's tough. But he says, I'm partial to my Boze dog.
Boze.
Yeah. He adds humbly, probably had a few that were as good, but I always liked him a lot. There's real affection there, beyond just performance.
And Boze's record was incredible, right? Especially considering his size.
Phenomenal. He won 27 rolls for Boudreaux.
Yeah.
And remember, a roll is like a test spar, checking gameness without a full fight.
Right. Shorter, less formal.
Exactly. And Boudreaux emphasizes Boze was always the smaller dog, but they couldn't beat him. He also won one contracted, formal fight.
So what made him so good? Being smaller, you'd think.
It had to be skill, heart, that gameness factor. Boudreaux tells his story about a match against a dog from Jerry Clemens and Douglas Nick Ryder.
Big names.
Right. And their dog was 19 pounds bigger than Boze.
19. That's huge in dog term.
Masses. And Boudreaux says this big dog would bite through car tires. Just raw power.
So what happened?
Boudreaux just says, when we put them down, it was a joke.
A joke, meaning Boze dominated him.
Completely. Overcame that huge size difference like it was nothing. It shows Boze's incredible skill and power.
How did Boudreaux describe his fighting style?
He called him a fast, hard-mouthed dog. Hard-mouthed meaning he bit with extreme force. And he fought high in the shoulder, a really strategic, damaging technique. Said he could destroy a dog quick.
Wow.
He remembers a fight in New Orleans. Boze won in just 6 minutes. Just wrecked the other dog. Jerome Hernandez's dog. No contest.
6 minutes is incredibly fast.
Blistering. Hernandez's camp apparently claimed their dog wasn't conditioned properly.
The classic excuse.
Right. Boudreaux just says his dog was ready. He also adds context, saying he matched into Jerome 3 times, won twice, acknowledges Jerome was tough to beat, shows that competitive respect.
But what's so interesting about Boze, this incredibly fierce competitor, is his off-duty personality, isn't it?
That's the amazing contrast you often see. Boudreaux shares this wonderful detail. During the day, Boze would often sleep with the puppies around the house.
Sleeping with puppies after destroying opponents in minutes.
Exactly. It just shatters those one-dimensional stereotypes. Boudreaux also saw him as shy, actually. Said he was just like Blind Billy, another dog he valued. Suggests those temperament traits could run in lines alongside the gameness.
Fascinating. And his breeding.
Boze was out of scrub and candy. That's the genetic key to this remarkable dog.
Okay, so Boze was a personal favorite, a real champion. Now let's prepare for a major shift. We need to talk about ELI.
Ah, ELI. Arguably one of the most important dogs in the entire history of the breed. His influence is just immense.
And Boudreaux feels very strongly about correcting the record on ELI, right? Getting the true story out there.
Passionately. He makes this incredible statement. Today, at least 80% of the dogs that are fighting come from ELI.
80%. That's almost unbelievable.
It's staggering. And he gets genuinely upset. He says, it makes me mad that they got the story on him and his sons, Bullison and Eli Gr, turned around.
Why is it so important to him? Not for his own legacy, he says.
No, he insists it's not about him. He knows the truth. It's for the future generation that is coming behind us, doesn't know anything about the truth and have to rely on what they're reading.
He feels a responsibility to history.
Deeply. It raises that question again. How does bad information spread, even in a tight community? And why correcting it is so vital. You know, for anyone wanting that verified history, the APBT Info YouTube channel really is invaluable.
It goes back to integrity, doesn't it? Boudreaux says it takes a small man to lie and change a story. I'm telling the truth about how them dogs are bred, just like I was told before. Powerful words.
Really powerful. Emphasizes that responsibility of passing down knowledge accurately.
So let's trace ELI's story. It sounds dramatic. Acquisition, then. Disappearance.
It really is like a mystery novel.
Yeah.
Boudreaux got ELI after his tough match against Jack Smith's dog in Cleveland. Took him home, nursed him back to health.
Doctored him up, as he put it.
Exactly. And EI's quality was obvious right away. A sheriff from Mississippi tried to buy him. Boudreaux refused.
Wouldn't sell.
Nope. Then the very next day, Raymond Holt and his wife Sharon from Texas came wanting to buy ELI. Boudreaux refused again.
He knew what he had.
Definitely. But later, showing that trust within the community, he gave ELI to his friend Junior Bush in Alabama.
Gave him away, a dog that valuable.
He describes Junior Bush as a real high-class dogman, an example for a lot of other so-called dogmen. Huge respect there. So it was a gift between respected peers.
Okay, but that's where things go wrong, isn't it?
Tragically, yes. Junior Bush then loaned ELI to John Cotton in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Loaned him out.
And it was while ELI was with Cotton that he was stolen.
Stolen. Just vanished. An incredibly important dog like that.
Gone. It's a massive turning point. Leaves this huge gap, this enduring mystery.
What happened after he was stolen?
Well, Cotton, clearly devastated and feeling responsible, gave Junior Bush $1,000. He even offered to cover any difference if Bush needed to buy another dog to replace ELI. Shows the value and the code.
But Boudreaux has his own suspicions about where ELI went, doesn't he?
Oh, strong suspicions. He believes ELI was taken from Chattanooga to Memphis. He's convinced some of that bunch in Memphis had something to do with it. Suggests he knew of groups involved in that sort of thing.
Wow. Like organized dog theft.
It sounds like it. And he connects ELI to another famous dog, too, based on observation.
Right. GRCH. Zebo.
Yeah. Boudreaux firmly believes ELI was Zebo's sire. Why? because they were too much alike not to be true.
So not based on papers, but on deep knowledge of traits, style.
Exactly. That expert eye honed over decades, seeing the family resemblance, the fighting style, the behavior. It's intuition backed by massive experience.
So ELI vanishes, but his genetic legacy explodes. Let's talk about that key litter with Spook.
Right, the Eli Spook litter. Spook herself had an interesting backstory. Boudreaux first gave a red pup to Jerry Clemens. Clemens sold it.
Okay.
Then Boudreaux gave Jerry Spook. She came from a litter where the pups were incredibly rough, killed each other when they were still very young.
Jeez. Intense from the start.
Very.
Yeah.
Jerry kept her for a couple of months, then brought her back to Boudreaux when she came into season, specifically to be bred to ELI.
And that litter was special.
4 pups, 3 black, 1 brindle, 2 males, 2 females, and they were all exceptional.
The cream of the crop, as Boudreaux called them.
Absolutely. Each one was significant. You had Bullison, the black male. Boudreaux calls him exceptional, says he went into some tough competition to make history. A truly famous dog.
Okay, Bullison. Who else?
Then Eli Jr., the other black male, also exceptional. But Boudreaux compares them, interestingly. He says Eli Jr. was actually a much better producer, passed on traits, better and definitely a better dog than Bullison in terms of fighting ability.
Better than the famous Bullison? How so?
Eli Jr. apparently didn't care if he was getting bit because he was going to bite you. Just relentless. But Boudreaux felt his potential as a stud was wasted because he wasn't bred to enough top-quality females.
Missed potential there. What about the females?
Brendy, the brindle female. Her description is legendary. Boudreaux said she bit the hardest of them all, was the biggest, and could break a dog down in less than 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah. He called her awesome, a bad bulldog, using bad as high praise, meaning truly formidable. Said he'd never seen anything like her again, recounts her beating a dog like she was having breakfast. Just effortless dominance.
Incredible. And the last one?
Elodie, the other black female. Boudreaux simply called her my kind of dog. And in his view, she was potentially the best in the litter. High praise indeed. What a litter.
Unbelievable. Truly foundational. Okay, let's focus on Bullison for a bit. He's probably the most famous, but his path was really tough. He was owned by Red Walling when matched into Benny Bob, right?
That's the famous match. And it highlights huge issues. Maurice Carver conditioned Bullison for that fight.
Carver again?
Yep. And Boudreaux is emphatic. Bullison was not fit to fight, period. He was facing so much adversity just before the match.
What kind of things?
It's a laundry list. He was bred to a female, Beth, right before the fight drains energy. He got bitten by a rattlesnake. His head swelled up as big as a Texas hat.
A rattlesnake bite. He survived that.
He did, but imagine the toll. Then he got into a fight through a fence, messed up his teeth and gums, critical for a fighting dog, and his blood count, down to 33, severely anemic. No stamina.
So he went into this major fight completely compromised.
Totally. The match weight was 52 pounds. Bullison, the black dog, came in at maybe 48, 49 pounds, already underweight and in terrible condition against Benny Bob, the brindle.
And the reporting of the fight got confused, too.
Yeah, Boudreaux mentions it was in Sparks magazine, Mayfield's book, but he dismisses a later book by Mayfield, Rednecks, which apparently had some nonsense about a black dog against a white dog.
Trying to create drama.
Seems like it. Boudreaux thinks that story got mixed up with a different fight altogether, involving Danny Burton's black dog and Raymond Holt's white dog, Lightning Third. Shows how easily facts get twisted over time.
It really underscores the need for these first-hand corrections.
Absolutely. And Boudreaux speculates, if Bullison had been in shape for that fight against Benny Bob, I think that would have been a hell of a fight. He knew the dog's potential, even if it wasn't realized that day.
Did Boudreaux ever test Bullison himself?
He did. He rolled his own dog, Napoleon, with Bullison. Bullison was 18 pounds heavier. Napoleon held his own for a bit, showing his gameness, but Bullison was coming on hard, showing his power, even when not fully fit. Later, Boudreaux actually won with Napoleon at the same show where Bullison won against the Sir Dog.
There's also that intense story about Bullison trying to bite Boudreaux. Really reveals Boudreaux's philosophy.
Oh yeah, Bullison was at Boudreaux's place, being tested. He tried to bite Boudreaux while he was cleaning. Boudreaux's reaction was instant. Hit him hard with a shovel and knocked him out.
Knocked him out. Wow.
Yeah.
That's like direct.
Very direct. But Boudreaux said after that, Bullison never, at my place, tried to bite anyone again. It shows his absolute zero tolerance for human aggression.
He makes that crystal clear, doesn't he?
No ambiguity, If a dog is a biting dog, I don't like them, and if they try to bite me or my family, it's a dead dog. That was his rule. Full stop.
He also made an interesting comment about temperament, about dogs being hyper.
Right. He mentioned Jerry Clemens' dogs, including young Bullison, were always sort of hyper, and he added, it's easy to make them that way, acknowledging that handling an environment can influence, even amplify certain traits.
A nuanced view. Briefly, what about Eli Jr., his brother? Any key moments?
Eli Jr., despite maybe not hitting his full stud potential, had his own incredible feat. He was sold to Douglas Nair Ryder for $400 at 17 months. And get this, he won his match in Oklahoma on a broken leg.
On a broken leg, and won.
Won. Just unbelievable gameness. That sheer will to continue, despite catastrophic injury. It speaks volumes about that bloodline.
Truly incredible stories. Okay. As we wrap up this deep dive into Floyd Boudreaux's world, let's talk about his final experiences in competition and his core beliefs, his philosophy of dogmanship.
It brings everything full circle. His last match dog was named Cactus from Grady Cummings. This was about 15 years before the interview.
And how did that go?
Not well. Cactus quit, curd out, in 28 minutes.
A cur, meaning he lacked gameness.
Exactly. Quit before the fight was really over. But the really frustrating part for Boudreaux was what happened just before the match.
What was that?
Another dogman, Atlas Brewer, pulled him aside just as they were about to wash the dogs for the fight, literally moments before,
Okay.
and told him that Cactus had actually quit in a previous outing. He'd known the dog was likely a cur.
He told him then, right before the fight?
Right then. Too late to do anything, and that violated Boudreaux's principles deeply.
You can imagine. His whole thing is about honesty, preparation.
Precisely. He said, if a man wants to help me, then help me on the get-go. He stated he'd never start conditioning a dog if he knew it was a cur. But it happened because the information was withheld. It highlights that importance of transparency, integrity. Breaking that code was a huge deal for him.
A really disappointing end to his matching career, it sounds like.
It does. But this whole conversation, everything we've discussed, it all comes back to Boudreaux's commitment to the truth, especially about Eli and his line.
It's not just about correcting facts for him.
No, it's about honoring the dogs, respecting the people involved, preserving the real story. Think how vital these oral histories are. So much of this was passed down by word of mouth, easily twisted. These interviews fill the gaps, correct the record for the future.
Preserving a legacy.
Exactly. It shows the dedication required, that deep connection Boudreaux and others had. It's more than just competition. It's about stewardship of a lineage and the truth behind it.
Well, what an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground today thanks to Floyd Boudreaux's memories. From his family's deep roots in this world to his own champion Boze.
That combination of power and gentleness.
Right. Then navigating the complex world of Maurice Carver, the charisma, the business sense, the controversies.
And how that influenced pedigrees even.
Absolutely. And finally, diving deep into Eli, understanding his massive influence and why getting that history right was so critically important to Boudreaux. Setting the record straight on Bullison, Eli Jr., Brendy, Lady.
That whole remarkable litter. Boudreaux really opened a window for us, didn't he? Into this specific subculture, the passion, the competition, the unique code of ethics.
He really did.
So as you're thinking about all this, consider what it means to preserve a legacy like this, especially when so much is oral, sometimes controversial, always personal. What lessons pop out for you about truth, dedication, that intense human-animal bond? What really stands out?
Lots to think about. And again, if you want to dive even deeper into verified APBT history, check out that APBT Info YouTube channel, a great resource.
Definitely worth exploring.